Guys, welcome to the current affairs discussion where I'll be discussing all of the important topics that are necessary for UPSC. Right, I'll be discussing all of the topics that are important for mains or prelims. Right, I'll be discussing the concepts that are necessary for UPSC. So, without any further ado, let us start with the current affairs class. Right, firstly, I think most of the current affairs that are necessary for UPSC are present in the editorials at the current point of time. Usually, it was present in all of the puff pieces, but now I think it's only in the editorials. And I've tried to take out some of the pieces or concepts from the particular editorial, and I'll try to explain all of those now, right? Firstly, an alternative to Viksit Bharat Shiksha Adhisthana bill, right? The basic idea of the bill is that it's trying to implement what are the features that are present in NEP 2020 or the National Education Policy 2020 for higher educational institutions, meaning it is trying to implement all of the aspects that are present in higher educational institutions for NEP 2020. So according to this particular act, there are some certain categories that are present, right? The first thing is that it is trying to centralize. It is trying to centralize authority through three councils, right? One is the standardized council. Then you have accreditation council, right? And then there's a regulatory council, meaning that whenever there's higher education institutions, all of these institutions will now be regulated through these three councils. One is the standard council, one is the regulatory council, and one is the accreditation council, meaning whenever it comes to the aspect of regulation or regulation of the particular institution or the higher education institution, the regulation council will take care. And whenever it comes to quality or the standard of the particular subjects, the accreditation comes place. And whenever the quality and assurance that is coming into play, then the standard council will take the action. So this is how the higher education institutions are being controlled through this particular act, through these kind of councils. But then again, the author is trying to say that there is something wrong with this particular bill. And something that is wrong with this particular bill is nothing but the federal feature. The main aspect that the author is trying to discuss is that there is a federal flaw with this feature. What is that federal flaw? The education as an aspect or a subject is present in concurrent list. Right? Education as a subject is present in the concurrent list in the 7th schedule, meaning that whenever there is a law or a policy that is being brought in, right, the union and also the state will have right to make laws in that particular subject. So when the parliament or the union has brought in a Viksit Bharat Shiksha Adhisthana bill, they did not consult the state governments. Without consulting the state governments, putting authority on all of the higher educational institutions that are present in the states is not a right thing. That is what the author is trying to say. So the first aspect that is troubling is the federal aspect. Right? Federal aspect is troubling. Second aspect that is troubling is the centralization of authority. Now, previously there was a lot of autonomy given to the higher educational institutions whenever it comes to the planning of the syllabus or the planning of their administration or regulation of that particular institution. But now through these three councils, the regulatory, accreditation, and the standard councils, the authority is being shifted to the central. So there is a centralized authority being formed whenever it comes to higher educational institutions. That is the other aspect that is troubling, right? Right? It is replacing all the university grants commissions, AITC, right? All of these institutions to a central council. There's another problem with this particular bill. And the third problem with this particular bill is that it is did not include the reservation aspect. Reservation aspect or the social justice aspect or public funding aspect. Right? What do I mean by reservation aspect? Whenever I say reservation aspect, it does not mean that the bill does not bill abolishes the reservation. Okay, you need to keep in mind that the bill does not abolish reservation, but it did not include laws that are absolutely providing for reservation. Right? Whenever you're talking about social justice, you need to mandate, right? You need to keep it mandatory into this particular law, because whenever it is coming to social justice, only when it is mandated, people try to implement it more. If it is not mandated, people will not mandate because they'll think it is voluntary. That is the reason even we have Article 17 in the Constitution. Why? Because it is a part of fundamental right. There's no discrimination that needs to be done. That is the reason they have mandated in the fundamental rights. That is the reason the author is also trying to say that the reservation aspect is not present in this particular bill. They're saying that in the NEP 2020 talked about social justice and equity. Right? Social justice and equity is what the NEP 2020 talked about. But then again, this particular bill has not talked about any reservation mandate or how the governance when it comes to the disadvantaged groups will happen. So this is a concerning aspect because there might be some flaws in this particular bill which could lead to more disadvantage to those who are not benefiting from that particular act. Okay, that is the third aspect. And when it comes to funding, the National Education Policy sought to fund or increase the public funding for the higher educational institutions to over 6% of GDP. And when 6% of GDP was the mandate given by NEP 2020, it should include laws or what you call policies or tenets that would ensure that this kind of funding is more promoted. In this particular law, there is no funding or any aspect that is mentioned about funding for the higher educational institutions, which would ensure the particular flow or the route through which funding can happen is absent. Okay, the route through which the public funding will happen is absent. So there is a confusion when it comes to public funding in this particular bill. Okay, and the fourth aspect is that this is a little concerning to, according to the author, right? In the particular act, they mentioned Bharatiya knowledge, right? They mentioned that they'll use Bharatiya knowledge. What is Bharatiya knowledge? Bharatiya knowledge was not clearly defined in this particular act. When something is not clearly defined, it becomes vague. And when it becomes vague, there is a lot of time or a lot of content for interpretation. Anything can be interpreted as Bharatiya knowledge, and some can interpret it in a broad way, right? They can include the Sufi saints, the Bhakti, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism. They can include all of these when a person is thinking broad. But when an institution or an organization is thinking narrow, it could actually lead to reduction in cultural diversity. Right? It could lead to a reduction in cultural diversity and promote majoritarian culture. What is the majoritarian culture that is present in India? Hinduism. So the author is saying that the Hindutva might be promoted much. That is the reason author is a little scared, because it would reduce the cultural diversity in India through higher education institutions and increase a majoritarian culture that is Hindutva in this particular bill. Those are all the aspects that the particular editorial is trying to say. So author also tried to mention how we can ensure that these kind of aspects are not there, right? He's trying to, whenever there's a problem, there's always a solution. And the problem to the solution is the opposite of what you're doing. Whenever there is no reservation present for that particular bill, you actually give mandates for reservation, right? You add laws or clauses for reservation. And whenever there's no particular clause for public funding, you add clauses for public funding. These are all that you have to do. You have to bring in state authority. You have to consult the states, right? The first solution is you have to consult the states. Second thing, you have to make the universities more inclusive. Universities and other higher education institutions more inclusive, because when you make those institutions inclusive, that is when you hear the real voice, right? What the students are speaking or what the institutions want or how they can govern themselves. It is not the central authority that is required. It is the voice of the students and the voice of the institutions that is required. Okay, so inclusion of universities and higher education institutions. Third, bringing out a framework for reservation. That whenever you bring out a framework of reservation, it becomes clear. Whenever it becomes clear, what will happen? It will be defined and there won't be any problem, right? Fourth aspect is bring in clauses for public funding. Whenever you bring clauses for public funding, the issue is solved. There's nothing much to think, thereby reaching the 6% GDP that was targeted under National Education Policy 2020, right? And the fifth aspect that is required is what do you call? I think those are all the aspects, yeah. Yeah, and the fifth aspect is defining the Bharatiya knowledge. Right? Defining the term Bharatiya knowledge would ensure there is no controversies being developed. Whenever the controversies are developed, what will happen? People will come onto the streets and they will start protesting. So in order to avoid all of these protestings, what you need to do, define the Bharatiya knowledge, ensure that people know it is something broad, it is not a narrow definition that we are looking at. We need to look at Bharatiya knowledge as a broad definition where it includes Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Islam, all of the religions that are present in India, which ensures cultural diversity. This is what's required. Okay, so that is all about this particular editorial. You can use it in GS2 when it comes to federalism, right? You can use it in federalism, and you can use it in governance, right? You can use it in these two aspects when it comes to this particular editorial. Now, after this editorial, let's move on to this. Yeah, I'll talk a little on this. Right. Oh, here we have. Yeah, here we have special intensive revision. There's nothing much about special intensive revision. I'll just special intensive revision is, and in which states the special intensive revision is being what you call happening. Okay, special intensive revision is nothing but a revision done by the Election Commission of India, and the reason the Election Commission of India is doing is it because to ensure that only eligible people are coming for voting, and those are those who are ineligible are not part of the voting system because they are not our citizens, or they have been betrayed, or something has happened. They have been migrated. Anything could be a reason, and the only reason SIR is conducted is to ensure that only eligible people have the right to vote. Okay, so that is the reason why special intensive revision is happening, and many people think that Assam is the only place where special intensive revision is happening, but no, special intensive revision has been happening in many areas, right? Special intensive revision has happened in Bihar, right? The first revision or the first edition has happened in Bihar. Is happening in West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, and Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, UP, Rajasthan, Lakshadweep, right? All of these areas is where the special intensive revision is happening. So it actually includes nearly 12 states and UPs, right? The special intensive revision is happening in 12 states and UTs. Now, the reasons why special intensive revision usually happens is 4. 1, the special intensive revision can happen because there is high amount of migration. Whenever there is high amount of migration, people tend to change it, right? People get rights to vote, and that actually changes the democracy, or what you call removes the basic essence of democracy. Okay, migration is one aspect, and removal of the dead voters, all the voters that have expired, in order to ensure that there is no misuse of all the people that have expired, they are removing all the dead voters from the voting list. And then you have population shift. Whenever there's population shift, you do special intensive revision. And fourth aspect is where you ensure that the people who are foreigners are not given the voting ability. Meaning, when I've seen many people who are NRIs, or sorry, who are what you call people who are not Indian citizens, maybe person of it, they could be a person of Indian origin, right? Or they could be a person who was born, who's holding a citizenship of any other country other than USA, but just because they are a person of Indian origin, they have come to India and they've stayed in India, they have gotten many chances of voting. So just to exclude all of those people who are not part of Indian citizenship, right? These are the reasons why the special intensive revision is going on. Okay, that is all you need to understand about SIR. And when it comes to SIR, I think that is not much of use in UPSC. I think you can use it in inclusion in democracy. Inclusion in democracy when it comes to GS2 paper, right? You can use it in general studies 2 paper when it comes to governance and inclusion of people into the democracy, as SIR helps ensure that those people who are not eligible are out of the list and who are eligible are in the list. Okay, so that is all about this particular editorial. Now, bolstering deterrence through submarine dominance. Now, this particular editorial, I don't think there is much information, but I would like to explain some concepts that are really important for prelims, right? I'll explain those concepts through the note. Basically, this editorial is talking about SSBN and SSN. I'll also explain the concepts of cruise and ballistic missile also. So I think you need to keep this, keep a little concentration on this particular editorial, right? We have SSBN. We have SSBN. SSBN is nothing but submersible ship ballistic nuclear, right? Submersible ship ballistic nuclear. The particular editorial is saying that as we have the induction of INS Aridman has happened in 2026, we have more capability of ensuring there is no nuclear war or nuclear deterrence happening in Indian Ocean. That way, we have more capability when it comes to defending ourselves on the water side. Okay, we are using SSBN. SSBN is nothing but a submersible ship ballistic missile, ballistic nuclear. Here, the nuclear does not refer to nuclear capability. It refers to nuclear power generation, right? It refers to nuclear power generation. What is nuclear power generation? Nuclear power generation is nothing but where the submarine is submerged into the water, and in order to run that particular submarine, it uses power from the nuclear reactors. That is what is called nuclear. And when it comes to ballistic missile is nothing but a missile that is coming from a trajectory, right? Trajectory, and it is a ship, and it is submersible in nature. It is a submersible ship. Submarine is nothing but a submersible ship which has ballistic capability and runs on nuclear energy. This is called a SSBN, and this SSBN has second strike capability. Right? The author is saying that the SSBN has a second strike capability, meaning that whenever the particular country attacks the land bases or the air bases, we have submarines which will ensure that even if the land bases and air bases are destroyed, we can actually attack again. Now that just imagine Iran has attacked USA, right? Iran has attacked USA's naval base and air base. Sorry, air base and naval base, right? What happened when the Iran attacked the air base and also the ground base? The capabilities of USA will actually reduce. But then again, if USA has SSBN ships, then what will happen? It will be able to strike back again. So then countries like Iran will be scared to ensure there is no nuclear war happening. Okay, so the main reason SSBN is used to deter nuclear war. Okay, the main reason SSBN is used to deter nuclear war. Other than this, we have SSN. SSN is nothing but submersible ship nuclear. Submersible ship nuclear is nothing but a submarine that runs on nuclear power. That's it. It does not have ballistic missile capability, meaning it does not have second strike capability. So this nuclear ship has what you call torpedoes. It has torpedoes and any missile or any machines or anything that is required to win in a naval battle. Right? The SSBN is used to actually ensure there is no nuclear war happening, meaning no nuclear deterrence. Okay, and SSN is used to ensure we have capability to win in the naval battle. Now I have discussed about what you call the SSN and SBN, but what you need to understand is that we have three kinds of SSBN. One is INS Ariant. One is INS Arigat, and the one that is recently commissioned, INS Aridman. Okay, these are all the SSBN that we have present. Now that we have understood a little on what SSBN is and what SSN is, let us understand what ballistic is and what cruise missile is. Ballistic and cruise missile. Right, ballistic missile and cruise missile. Ballistic missile is any missile that is a rocket thrown weapon. Right, it is a rocket thrown weapon I'll write a little neatly, right? Rocket thrown weapon, meaning that it is ensuring that it is falling on gravity, meaning the rocket throws the weapon and it falls based on the gravity. So it is a parabolic path. It has a parabolic path, right? And it is very high. It flows very high, right? It flies very high, and it has a very high speed. It runs at a hypersonic speed, and it falls based on gravity. And the main issue that you need to keep in mind is that you can only set the target once you before launching. You can only set the target before or at the time of launching, right? Right, these are all the aspects when it comes to ballistic missile. They are rocket thrown weapons which have a parabolic path, which fly very high at a hypersonic speed and fall on the basis of gravity. And the only way you can set a target is before or at the time of launch. After you launch it, you cannot control it again. Okay, so these are all the aspects when it comes to ballistic missile. And when it comes to cruise missile, they are not rocket thrown; they are controlled missiles, controlled or guided missiles. Right, they are guided missiles. They fly low. Unlike the ballistic missiles which fly very high, the cruise missiles fly very low, and they travel at subsonic or supersonic speed, not hypersonic speed, meaning the cruise missiles are slower than the ballistic missiles. That is what you need to keep in mind. Many people think that cruise missiles are actually faster than the ballistic missiles, but no, cruise missiles are slower than the ballistic missiles, which travel at subsonic and supersonic speeds. Right? And they can be guided or controlled throughout the journey, unlike the ballistic missiles, which you can only control at the time of launch. Guided missiles or cruise missiles can be guided throughout the journey. That is all you need to keep in mind when it comes to ballistic and cruise missile, right? Cruise missile, ballistic missile, where they are rocket thrown weapon and they follow a parabolic path and they are very high. They fly very high at hypersonic speed and they fall based on gravity. And you can only set the target before or at the time of launch. When it comes to cruise missile, they're controlled or guided missiles. They fly very low and they run at a speed of subsonic or supersonic speeds, and they're guided throughout the journey. Okay. Now the examples of ballistic and cruise missiles are a few. You have Agni series, then you have Prithvi, right? Agni series, Prithvi, and K4. These are all the examples of ballistic missile. And when it comes to cruise missile, you have BrahMos and Nirbhay. These are all the examples of cruise missile. So let us just recap what the ballistic missile and cruise missiles are. Ballistic missiles are nothing but rocket thrown weapons which go in a parabolic path, which fly very high, and they travel at a hypersonic speed, and they fall on the basis of gravity, and you can only set the target at or before the time of launch. And the examples of ballistic missiles are Agni series, Prithvi series, and also K4. Now when it comes to cruise missile, they are controlled or guided missiles which fly very low. They are subsonic speeds. They fly at subsonic or supersonic speeds. They're guided throughout the journey. And the examples of BrahMos and Nirbhay, the examples are BrahMos and Nirbhay. And what you need to understand is that ballistic missiles can be noticed, right? They come into the radar, but they are very hard to stop. But when it comes to cruise missiles, they are not detected by the radar, right? The other aspects that you need to remember is they are not detected by the radar, right? These are all the information that you need to understand when it comes to ballistic missile and cruise missile. These are all important for prelims. Just keep in mind all of these aspects, right? And just reiterating all of these, just because I want you guys to remember all of these, because they might ask these kind of questions in prelims, because UPSC is focusing a lot on science and technology a lot, and especially on the missile technology that India has. Ballistic missiles, rocket thrown weapon, parabolic path, very high, hypersonic speed, fall on based of gravity. They are noticeable at the time of launch, but they are very hard to stop, and the launch time or the launch direction or the target is only set before or at the time of launch. And the examples are Agni series, Prithvi, and K4. When it comes to cruise missile, they're controlled and guided missiles. They fly very low, they travel at a subsonic or supersonic speed. They are guided throughout the journey, and they are not detected by the radar. And the examples are BrahMos and Nearby. Okay, that is all I wanted to mention in today's particular article. I mean, editorial or the newspaper, because these are all the important aspects for UPSC. And rest information, let's see in the next newspaper analysis. That is on Monday, right? Thank you, guys.